We could probably argue for days about how important likes are and how important comments are on social media, but I think the one thing that we could all agree is important is how many people saw your post. So I decided to test this anyway. I posted the same image at the same time to the two platforms that I consider to be the best for me at the moment, which is Twitter and Instagram. Now, bear in mind that I have a very different sized following on the two platforms. I have about 11,000 followers on Instagram and I have about 800 followers on Twitter. But as you will see, this doesn't really make a huge difference. So before we get into the results of our test, let's just talk about why impressions are important. They are the best clue as to whether the intention behind your post actually worked. So for example, let's say that I put out a post and I wanted people to comment, so I asked a question and 10,000 people saw it, but nobody commented. That tells me that my question wasn't very good, or the way I laid out my post wasn't very interesting. Another way of looking at this would be, let's say that I put out a post and my intention was to get people to click through to my website and 10,000 people saw it, but not one person clicked through to my website. Again, that tells me that I need to work harder and do better at trying to find a caption that is going to engage people enough to go and click through to my website. I think on top of all of this, we would all agree that we want the most people possible to see our posts. Anyway, let's get into the results of our test. So I posted one image to Twitter and I posted it to Instagram. So how did each platform do? Let's look at Instagram first. So I have around 11,000 followers on Instagram, and the post that I put out got around 6,300 impressions, which is about half of my following, which is pretty normal for me. That's about the same sort of thing that I normally get. Now, if you just look at those stats, you'll actually notice that there isn't any impressions from hashtags, and that's because I actually have stopped using hashtags altogether at the moment. That's not some crazy hack, don't get too excited. It's just because I'm lazy and I can't be bothered to use hashtags because I don't really get much impressions through them anyway, so I'm not going to sweat over them. I just like posting and talking to my followers. But in the interest of fairness, I have looked at my past posts over the last however much time, and I get about 1,500 impressions on average from hashtags. So let's just keep that in mind and add it to the, what is that, 7,500 impressions-ish on my Instagram post. One thing I will actually note here though is I thought it was quite interesting that you can see I got about 80 impressions from the Explore page without using hashtags. So I think that tells us that it is possible to end up on the Explore page without getting loads of impressions in hashtags. Even if 80 isn't very many, it's still interesting. So let's compare that with Twitter. Twitter, I have about 800 followers. So I posted this image to Twitter, and if we look at the impressions, we can see that I got 9,960 impressions. So immediately that's higher. That's much higher than the Instagram impressions. That's higher than the Instagram impressions plus the hashtags that we're bolting onto it just for fairness. And then let's consider that I have 800 followers on Twitter and I have 11,000 on Instagram. So on Instagram, I got about 50% of my following in reach, essentially. And on Twitter, I got about 1,000% of my following in reach. That's incredible in my opinion. Now there are a few things that we do need to consider here, okay? This could be an anomaly. This could have just been a randomly boosted post on Twitter. Maybe someone happens to like it or retweet it that has a massive following, but that's just the nature of Twitter, isn't it? So now let's look at Instagram. What could have happened there? And honestly, I don't really have much to say because that's pretty normal. I get about 50% of my following in impressions on the platform basically every time I post. So that's just normal to me. I'm not surprised at the number that I got on Instagram. I'm not disappointed in it either. That's just Instagram. However, I was massively surprised when I went back to check the amount of reach that I got on Twitter. Now, one thing I will say about Instagram, back when hashtags did do something, sometimes a post would blow up in a similar way and I get a whole bunch of reach from it. But again, we do have to consider that the size of my following is still much bigger than it was on Twitter. So now let's consider something else, okay? On Twitter, as I said, this got, 9 replies, 27 retweets and 227 likes, okay? Now I'm going to switch to Instagram. 1,186 likes and 63 comments. So the engagement was much higher on Instagram. Now, I had a conversation with somebody in my YouTube comments a little while ago and they were saying, oh my God, bro, the engagement on Twitter is so low. And yeah, it's lower, it's much lower than Instagram, but it means more. Now with a retweet, Some people might have quoted it and some people would have just retweeted it. So it really does just end up to all their followers from a retweet. I don't know how much algorithm stuff there is going on Twitter, but that's essentially what a retweet is. But the great thing with Twitter is, with a like, it does also end up on their feed. You will see every now and then, you'll see a new person ending up on your feed and it will say liked by so-and-so on the thing. So that was 227 opportunities for my post to end up on some stranger's feed. And so I may be speaking really positively of Twitter here, but I'm not speaking negatively of Instagram. The difference here is that Twitter has a really great kind of passive discovery system and recommendation system where, you know, without it bothering you, you see people's content that ends up on your feed that you don't follow. The trouble with Instagram is your posts just can't break out unless you're using hashtags. But some of the, you know, the updates and the things that they've been talking about, and particularly the way that Reels works, means there are more opportunities for your posts to go further. So my fingers are crossed that Instagram are going to fix their lack of organic reach on the platform, and maybe we will start seeing numbers like we're seeing over on Twitter. In the meantime, as I've already said, you know, consider Twitter a place to post your photography, because I do and I'm enjoying it and lots of people are. Anyway, I really hope that you found that useful. I hope that those numbers kind of, you know, just at least told you something about the way that these platforms work. That's my intention. I'm not here to try and convince you to go to one or the other. I'm just here to try and, you know, straighten things out. So if you enjoyed this, hit the like button and answer this in the comments, okay? What's your normal reach on Instagram? How much kind of reach do you get on your posts? Is it 50%, 40%, 3,000%? You know, it could be anything. Let me know what it is in the comments. I'd be really interested to see what the community are getting on the platform. But anyway, as I said, hit the like button, and if you're a subscriber of mine, I will see you in the next video. Thanks very much.